It's Saturday, December 27th, recorded live from the English Valley's History Center. Here's Jackie.
Hi, my name is Jackie Geringer McDermott, and my first story today is called From Patrick Monaghan to Rose Holt. Rose Holt from North English and formerly of Kinross, and her son Tony Denton from Florida came to the English Valley's History Center recently to reminisce and look at photos of their Monaghan-Denton family. Here is some of what they might have talked about that day. This information is taken from Won't You Take Me to Hinkletown, a book by Dave Jackson, which we are hoping that he sends for a reprint so we can sell more books. We also used other research from Dave Jackson, Find a Grave, Ancestry.com, the book 75 Years of Sacred Heart Church in Kinross, Iowa, which includes pictures from the Steve Miller collection, and a collection of McCann Monaghan pictures from the Maggie Goody Christie collection that is kept at the History Center. Michael Monaghan and his wife, Catherine Sullivan Monaghan, came from Ireland to America and settled in Fillmore Township in Iowa County by the time of the 1860 census. They attended St. Michael's Catholic Church at Holbrook, which was about 10 miles away, but quite a jaunt in those times over the prairie. Their two oldest children, John and Patrick, were born in Ireland. Their son Charles was born in Ohio, and the youngest two, who were twins, Michael and Ellen, were born in Iowa in 1858. In 1860, Fillmore Township was sparsely populated. Here is a picture of Patrick Monaghan and his younger brother Michael Monaghan. Patrick is the one that is seated. And here is Patrick's brother John Monaghan, whose descendants lived in the Holbrook and Williamsburg areas, and it also included one of his grandsons was Irish O'Neill. The youngest brother, Michael Monaghan Jr., who passed away in 1930, and his wife, Kate Devine Monaghan, lived on a farm very near to Patrick and Bridget Monaghan in Liberty Township, Keokuk County, Iowa. I haven't found a picture of their sister Ellen or their mother Catherine yet, but here's a picture of their brother Charles. He's the second from the right in this photograph in the front row, and he also lived in the Hinkletown, Little Creek area. I thought it was interesting that in 1860, the Monaghan family lived up in Fillmore Township in Iowa County, north and east of North English, closer to Parnell, a couple of doors away from my ancestors, Anna Bramer Carter Raines, and her younger children, including her sons Oscar and Jacob Carter. Here is a picture of my great-great-great-grandmother, Grandma Raines, who was a neighbor to the Monaghans. But more about her in another broadcast. I hope you are starting to see why I think it is important to trace our history back to our pioneer relatives. Patrick Monaghan was born in 1836 in Ireland, probably County Mayo, as was listed as his brother's birthplace. Patrick came with his parents to Iowa to live when he was young. Patrick enlisted in the 22nd Regiment, Iowa Infantry during the Civil War. Patrick's mother was said to have covered his footprints left in the mud outside their house with boards so that she would have something to remember him by. Here is his Civil War tintype. And a copy of that was later made on paper. It was called a studio card. And here is the colorized version of Patrick Monaghan. Patrick Monaghan served in Company K of the 22nd Iowa Infantry in the Civil War and was wounded at the Battle of Black River Bridge just prior to the siege of Vicksburg. He was laid up from injuries for about 6 weeks, but then rejoined his infantry for later battles. After returning home from the war, he married Bridget or Bid McCann in 1871 in St. Michael's Catholic Church at Holbrook. Bridget was born in New York State and came to the Little Creek area when she was a young child. The 9 children of Bridget and Patrick Monaghan were Catherine or Kate Monaghan, Michael or Mick Monaghan, Charles A. Monaghan, Mary Rita or Sis Denton, John Francis or Jack Monaghan, Anna or Babe Monaghan, Joseph H. or Joe Monaghan, Ellen or Nell Hogan, and Rose Waters. And the younger children all graduated from Kinross High School. In 1886, Patrick Monaghan attended a reunion of his Civil War comrades. This is Company K, 22nd Iowa Infantry, at their reunion in Iowa City on September 22, 1886. This photo is by D. Radcouver, Elite Studios. Patrick Monaghan is in the front row, third from the left, with his hat on the ground in front of him. And here is a close-up of that picture. Patrick is the one with the hat on the ground, the second one in. Third one in. Patrick Monaghan died at age 58 in 1897 as a result of a lengthy illness, complicated by his wounds from the Civil War. According to an article written by his daughter, Rose Waters, he still had a bullet lodged in his body. It is interesting to note that Patrick's youngest daughter, Rose Monaghan Waters, who was 2 years old when Patrick died in 1897, lived until 2001, attaining the age of 106. And here is Rose Waters' graduation picture from Kinross. And here's a picture of Rose Waters on her 100th birthday. And here are some pictures of Patrick and Bridget Monaghan's other children. This is Joe Monaghan as an adult. This is Mick Monaghan. This is Mick and Joe Monaghan. All these people were residents of Kinross. This one's Mick and Joe. This one is Mick and Nell. Joe and Nell, excuse me. This one is Kate Monaghan, the oldest girl. And this is Charles A. Monaghan. Patrick Monaghan's parents, Michael and Catherine Monaghan, also died just before 1900 and are buried at St. Patrick's Little Creek. After they were married, Patrick and Bridget Monaghan lived on a farm in the north part of Keokuk County, north of Kinross, just south of Hinkletown. They attended the nearby Catholic Church at St. Patrick's Little Creek. In 1875, Bridget's parents, Patrick and Catherine Smith McCann, had donated the land for St. Patrick's Church. Charles Monaghan, the son of Bridget and Patrick Monaghan, was the first baby baptized in the new St. Patrick's Church. Their grandson Joe Denton and his wife Florence Waters Denton had the last wedding at Little Creek in 1929. The farm that Patrick and Bridget Monaghan lived on was owned in recent years by Ronnie and Kathy Monaghan. Ronnie and his brother Paul are descendants of Patrick's brother Charles. Although the St. Patrick's Little Creek Church is gone now, the cemetery where Patrick and many of his family members are buried is still there and is still used. And here's a picture of the Little Creek Church. The Little Creek Church area was a vibrant area. They had fantastic picnics and celebrations each year. They shared a priest with other churches in the area. After 1905, when the Kinross Catholic Church, which was called Sacred Heart, was built, Sacred Heart and St. Patrick's shared a priest and also shared the cemetery at Little Creek. The church at Little Creek was demolished in 1966. In 1912, Patrick's widow, Bridget or Bid Monaghan, moved into Kinross with her 4 youngest children still at home. Bridget lived until 1937. Here is Bridget Monaghan. And here is a picture of Bridget with her daughter Sis Denton, her grandson Joe Denton, and her great-granddaughter Rita Denton Stroman, who was Rose Holt's sister. As we just mentioned, Mary Rita or Sis Monaghan married Will Denton. Their sons were, in the back, John, Harley or Hod, Gail, and Joe. And in the front are their mother, Sis Denton, and her daughter, Mary Denton Miller. Sis's sons served in the military, and she wrote many letters to them. Harley or Hod Denton was famous around the Kinross area as he was a livestock buyer. Mary Denton married Mel Miller, and their children were Steve Miller from Riverside, who is married to Jenny Hall from North English and comes to many of our History Center events, and Steve's siblings, Michelle, Tom, Ed, and Tim Miller, who lived in Kinross and attended English Valley schools before they moved to New Mexico. Joe Denton from Kinross married Florence Waters in 1929. Their daughter Rose Holt moved to California after she grew up and then came back to Kinross with her husband Cecil Holt to raise their children. Here is a picture of Rose when she was in school. And here is a picture of her grandma, Sis Denton, her parents, Joe and Florence Denton, and little girl, Rose. And here is one of Rose and her siblings. They are Denny Denton, Rose Holt, Joe Denton, Donna Stroman, and Billy Joe Denton. Rose's son, Tony Denton, lives in Florida and just visited here. Rose's daughter, Stacy, and her family live in North English, and her son, Mike Holt, and his family live in this area also. And here's a picture of Mike and Stacy Holt and their uncle, Denny Denton. We will have more in the coming weeks about some of the other families in the Little Creek area. The English Valleys History Center promotes the rich history of the communities within the river valleys of the North, Middle, and South English Rivers. It encompasses an area roughly served by the English Valley School District from Deep River to near Parnell and from Wattier to Kinross. This also includes the communities of Millersburg, North English, Webster, and South English. Please send donations to the English Valley History Center, P.O. Box 70, North English, Iowa 52316. This is a reminder that the next alumni luncheon group will meet at the North English Pub and Grub in North English in April. Please contact Linda Holden Carter or Alice Floring Stramer for reservations as the time approaches. The programs for 2026. The English Valley History Center has programs on Sunday afternoons at 2 p.m. The programs for 2026 are March 29th, the Union First, Community and Commitment in the 1st Iowa Infantry by Randy Feiselman. On April 27th, we'll host Iowa's Camouflage Experts by Roy R. Behrens. On June 28th, it will be Mike Williams from Kyoto with Automotive History, a Personal Obsession. On July 19th, we'll be Farming on the Oxbow with Alan Hogue. August 30th, which is my birthday, we will have Sandra Kessler host with What Happened to the Iowa. On September 27th, we will host Jacob Glandon from Webster, Iowa with his program, My Life as a Local Filmmaker. On October 25th, we will have Kristen Kumpf Bale with the Anne Frank Tree in Iowa City. On November 22nd, our local Kinross celebrities, Scott Romine and Steve Miller, will present the Iowa Project, The Mosaic, about the story of the mosaic here at the History Center. And now we're going to go on to the diaries. This diary was written by Libby Wade. She was my great-great aunt, and her full name was Mary Elizabeth Claypool Wade. She was 75 years old in September of 1950. And here's a picture of Lib when she was younger. September 1st, 1950. Was cloudy this morning but cleared off and is a bit warmer this p.m. Russell went to Cedar Rapids today, so I am alone. Jenny took Frida to Cedar Rapids to the dentist today. Mildred Cox went too. I have been crocheting, started on another hot pad. I called Dr. Miller and he began a series of cold shots. We'll have another next Friday. Lib's son, Russell Wade, works at the Home Lumber Company a block and a half away and often drives out of town to pick up loads of materials for the company. Jenny is Lib's daughter-in-law, married to her oldest son, Wayne or Perky Wade. And here's a picture of Wayne and Jenny. Frida is Jenny's daughter-in-law and is married to Lib's grandson, Walter or Bud Wade. Dr. L.A. Miller Sr., or Old Doc as we called him, makes house calls to see Lib at her home, as she is pretty much housebound these days. Hudson finished the painting across the street today. Dr. Miller says he has 3 cases of polio, one near Green Valley and one at Webster, Blair and Perrin. I believe Lib had said earlier that Lawrence Hudson was painting the house across the street where Shorty or Roy and Lona Harris live. And that would be this Hoke Street house across the street from them. Since it was in the days before HIPAA laws, Dr. Miller felt free to discuss his cases with Lib. Mary Newhouse was in a while in the PM. She said that Don Van Dyke and Mrs. Jasper Hoff are training houses and are partly moved now. The town got its third spraying for the year this evening at 5:30 or 6 p.m. I hope it keeps the polio away. I found a picture of Mary Newhouse in the Kinross Catholic Church book. She is the young woman in the back row. Her parents are also in this picture, and we'll tell more about that in another story later. So this is Mary in the back in the middle. The city of North English was spraying powerful bug spray in 1950 in hopes that it would kill mosquitoes that were spreading polio. By 1955, doctors learned that the polio virus could be controlled with a vaccine, which is why there were only 33 cases of polio in the entire world in 2018. Bruce called for Russell before he got home. They didn't send all the doors he had ordered. Russell didn't know what he had ordered, so it was someone else's fault or failure. Russell must have dropped his load at the home lumber company and then continued on with errands after work because his boss, Bruce Warner, called the house on the phone. There were no cell phones in those days. Heard President Truman's speech tonight. Hattie was here. Russell went out to Reese's, I suppose. It is much warmer this p.m. Lib listened to the president's speech on the radio, as the family did not yet have a television. Hattie Newberry Killian is Lib's 59-year-old neighbor and friend, and she often visits. Russell's girlfriend, Mildred Reese, lives in the country west of town with her parents. There's a picture of her with her brothers. September 2nd, 1950. Looks nice out. Fair weather predicted for the weekend. Be lots of traffic as the Labor Day vacation is on. Russell and Virgil Hahn are starting on a fishing trip down near Burlington. Russell left at 5:45 this morning. This is Russell's fishing buddy, Virgil Hahn. Russell loves to fish in his spare time and also uses his catch to feed the family. I felt all right until about 7. I had a pain in my stomach. I thought it would be all right, so I ate some breakfast and had hot coffee, but the pain increased. Took some soda, and then took a dose of milk and magnesia. It is, I think, some better. Maybe over it by noon, not funny. Frida and Claudia came, brought Jim and Claudia's pictures. They are so good. Jimmy is with Frida's sister this week, while Frida is getting some teeth taken care of. Claudia and Jim Wade are Lib's great-grandchildren, and they live a block away from her. Claudia was 3, and Jim was 1 year old in 1950. Here's Claudia. And here's Jim Wade's graduation picture. Mary Ann was in. She brought the mail, but no letter from Anna yet this week. Maybe tonight. Mary Newhouse runs errands for Lib, as Lib is no longer able to run around town doing them for herself. Stella stopped on the way to Royal Neighbor meeting at the hall. Stella Wallace is a neighbor and the mother of Lib's daughter-in-law, Lena Wade, the wife of second son, Warner Mike Wade. She is going to a meeting in the hall above the Locker building, just up the street from Lib's house. Jenny and Evelyn and Kathy came in the evening. They brought a letter from Anna. She wrote that Arlen has passed the exam and is to go into the service soon. All are well and are very busy with the crops and watering, etc. And here is Evelyn Kurtz. She's Jenny's daughter. And Kathy Kurtz is her daughter and Lib's great-granddaughter. Kathy was 2 years old in 1950. Anna Cray is Lib's only daughter, and she lives in South Texas, where she and her husband are citrus farmers. And here's Anna and Richard. Lib's grandson, Arlen Cray, will be heading into the service, which is very concerning for Lib as the Korean conflict is ramping up. There's Arlen. Saw in the Cedar Rapids paper where Everett Curl was injured in a truck and car accident near Cameron, Texas. A woman from Cedar Rapids who was one of the occupants of the car had her leg broken. She was Mrs. Lottie Hardwick. Everett Curl is Lib's brother-in-law, as his wife, Bessie Curl, was a sister to Lib's husband, Albert Otis Wade. The Curls live in Texas near Anna and family and are also citrus farmers. September 3rd, 1950. Brother Henry's birthday, 1864. It is nice here this morning and I'm feeling better, slept good. Henry Claypool was Lib's older brother by 10 years, and he lived from 1864 to 1933. And here's a picture of them together. Hattie was here a while this morning, then rode to church with the Morses. Mrs. Bolts was here. I asked her to come for dinner, which she did. We had chicken and noodles. Hattie Newberry Killian rode to church with Charles and Neva Morse, who were the parents of Leona Morse Bursler, who was married to Hattie's nephew, Levon Bursler. And here's a picture of Charlie and Neva Morse with their grandsons, Billy and Gary Morse. Mrs. Bolt is Elizabeth or Lizzie Geiger Bolt, who is Lib's 89-year-old neighbor, and she often asks her to eat with them. Suzanne was here a while. She said Wayne and Jenny are going over to their place today. It is nice and warm today. We have had so many cold, gloomy days. Mrs. Morse brought me some beets from her friend's garden at Ladora yesterday. Suzanne Elizabeth Kurtz is Lib's oldest great-granddaughter, and she is almost 8 years old. She often walks up to see Lib when she is visiting in her grandparents' house a block away. She says her grandparents are headed to her parents' house. Hattie's Aunt Jenny rang here about where Hattie was. I only knew she went to church. Stella was here this p.m. She stayed until 4:30. She said the Catholics had a picnic over at the park today. Jenny Harper is Hattie's aunt, and she lives out of state now since her husband has passed away. So she was calling on the phone to see about Hattie. And she's in this picture in the back row on the left. I thought it was interesting to note that the Catholics had a picnic at the city park today, as that park is across from the Casey's General Store now and is still in use today. Hattie came over in the evening, and later Jenny came. She and Wayne had been to the show. He stopped in town, and she came here. Hattie also said Mrs. Back died yesterday. Her funeral was Tuesday, and also told of the death of Mrs. Frank Flossinger of Iowa City, who was killed in a car accident in Texas while on a land-seeking excursion. I wonder if this was the one who was riding with Everett Curl. Labor Day, September 4th, 1950. Cool, but sun is shining this morning. Will likely warm up. Dan McCarty came. He wanted Russell to get him some cement. I told him to see Bruce. Jenny came, brought a letter from Dale Bishop. He is in the Navy on the USS Missouri. Expects to go to Pearl Harbor soon. Dale Bishop had been a neighbor kid who grew up, and then his family left the area, but he stayed in touch with the Wade family. Flossie was here a while. She had brought Barbara in for school. This is the first day of the school term. The pupils were to be there for only a short time today, and I thought that was remarkable because it was Labor Day. Here's a picture of Flossie. Flossie is the granddaughter of Lib's late cousin, Wallace Claypool. She and her daughter, Barbara, are living with her parents, Millard and Molly Claypool, out in the country. Mrs. Harris and Gertie are painting the porch and front steps over at their house, a gray color. Lorna Reed Harris was the mother of my Aunt Joanne Harris Geringer, and Shorty or Roy and Lona Lorna Harris. Their family lived across the street from Lib in 1950. Gertie Harris, whose full name was Gertrude Caliph Reed Harris, was her mother, and thus the great-grandmother of my Geringer cousins in Texas, David, Kim, and Carrie, and of Amy Andreessen of North English, of my childhood friend Stephen Rose and his sister Susan, and many others. She was known as Grandma Gertie to many North English residents. Jenny told of the mysterious disappearance of a man from Sigourney, I believe. They feared foul play. Maud was here a while, and then went over to see Jesse Schoenthaler, who came home from the hospital yesterday. Hattie called by phone. Millie was here a while. I let her have some stamps. Russell got home, had some nice fish. He took some out to Reese's and put the others in the refrigerator. I heard that George Brink was in town. He was bringing Rosa Secor's car yesterday, Maud said. Maud Claypool is a friend and neighbor and married to Lib's nephew, Ray Claypool, and she keeps Lib updated on the local news. Jessie Schoenthaler is a neighbor from over on Boland Avenue and the wife of the local dentist, A.C. Schoenthaler, and here's their picture in their centennial clothes in 1954. And Millie Swope Kniffer is another friend. Here's the flyer for the History Center stuff. I couldn't find it a little bit ago, but this shows all the programs that are going to be this year. Russ Bucher. We had a very special acquisition into the History Center recently. Russ Bucher and his wife, the late Helen Bucher, have been fantastic supporters of our English Valleys History Center. Here is a picture of Russ and his purple and gold North English Bears 1956 letter jacket that he has donated to the History Center. Here is the front of the jacket and the back of the jacket. Russell played football for the North English High School and was involved in many school and church activities such as band, and as well as raising livestock as a teenager. He recalls that he was selected to Boys State by the local American Legion and that he and the other two boys selected, Jack Smith and David Humphrey, piled into Dave Humphrey's 1949 Chevy car and went to Camp Dodge in Des Moines to attend Boys State. Here are pictures of his friends. Jack Smith and Dave Humphrey are in the top row on the right side. And here is Russ's graduation picture from the North English High School class of 1956. We will have more on the ancestry of Russ Bucher and the history of his family in the Green Valley, Hinkletown, and North English area in a future story. Correspondence. Mark Claypool from Sigourney said, Jackie, the memories this week are so special. I can just hear Bob and Ethel in the grocery store and the bakery. And oh, the memories of the theater as well. I am always so happy to hear you each week. Take us back. Sharon Wilhite Hagen from Williamsburg said, great memories, Jackie. Susie Allison Lundberg from Iowa City said, awesome. Carolyn Claypool Atwood from Jensen Beach, Florida, said she watches every week. I have watched every one and admire the time and effort you put into it. My brother Chip Geringer from Williamsburg said he remembers Bob's You Save and the meat counter, so modern at the time. He says he plays my podcasts on his TV so he can put them on pause and check out the details on the pictures. Louise Ballard Davis from Marengo said, "The greatest show on earth," meaning my weekly broadcast. Pam Kavanaugh Shield from Cedar Rapids said, "Another great walk down memory lane. I can almost feel the vibes from those days that you so eloquently describe. Love the passion you bring to North English history alive." Thank you, Jackie. Our condolences this week to Carol Trier and her family for the loss of her brother, Larry Lown, from the class of 1967. We are also interested in learning about historical English Valleys items that you might wish to donate to the History Center. Please contact Dave Jackson, Scott Romine, or any board member to donate. And that's it, unless Russ wants to get on camera.
Not again.
Not again. He did it once. Bye-bye.
And that's a wrap. Thanks, Jackie.